Now, when President Tom speaks in front of the UN General Assembly tomorrow, you'll likely hear all the typical rhetoric about how peaceful they are and blah-de-blah-de-blah-de. But if his previous addresses are any indication, the media will probably ignore what is perhaps the most important part of his speech. Here he is at the UN in 2005.
Almighty Lord, I pray to you to hasten the emergence of your last repository, the promised one, that perfect and pure human being, the one that will fulfill this world with justice and peace.
Okay, this is what he said at the end of his speech last year as well at the UN. After calling for the return of the promised one, Ahmadinejad left the stage in 2005 and said to a cleric, and I quote, "I felt that all of a sudden the atmosphere changed, and for 27 to 28 minutes the leaders did not blink," end quote. President Ahmadinejad has been quietly talking about his belief, and this is important that you understand this, that we are in the end days. The real story is, he's not bearing this lead anymore. Listen to his opening remarks this afternoon at Columbia.
O God, hasten the arrival of Imam al-Mahdi and grant him good health and victory, and make us his followers and those who attest to his rightfulness.
Okay. I hope you're starting to hear a pattern here. This guy is openly praying for the return of the Mahdi in almost every speech, and now he's starting his speeches with that. Yet no one in the media is even bothering to do their homework on what that really means. Basically, think of the Mahdi as the Shiite Muslim version of the second coming of Jesus Christ. But unlike Christians, the Twelvers, as they're called, President Tom is a Twelver, believe that they can hasten the Mahdi's return by creating the right conditions for it. Unfortunately for us, those conditions are pretty simple. Chaos, war, bloodshed. Because only then can the Mahdi return with peace and justice. Think about that. Ahmadinejad must usher in chaos and war before he can fulfill his destiny. That is why he wants a nuclear program. That is why he threatens Israel in the West. And that is why he's killing our soldiers in Iraq. To him, the United States is the only thing stopping the war and chaos that he needs. And believe it or not, that makes us the great Satan, otherwise known in the West to you and me as the literal Antichrist. When your politics are your religion, it is impossible to understand one without first understanding the other. Joel Rosenberg is the author of Epicenter, How the Current Rumblings in the Middle East Will Change the World. Joel, this guy, nobody gets this. Everybody says you're nuts and you shouldn't take him at his word. He is telling us what he's going to do.
He certainly is, Glenn, and I think you've picked up on a really important point that in his previous trips to the United States in 2005 and 2006, he ended his speeches at the United Nations by praying for the Islamic Messiah, known as the Mahdi, this just and promised one, to arrive. But now you're absolutely right, he is leading with that. And this is interesting because of the timing. When Ahmadinejad was elected in June of 2005, he began telling people that the end of the world was just 2 or 3 years away, and that the way to hasten the coming of the Mahdi, the Islamic Messiah, was to annihilate Israel, the little Satan in his view, and the United States, the great Satan. And now we are 2 years into that, right? We're now in the fall of 2007, 2 years later. We don't know exactly his timetable, but we know what he's been doing over the last 2 years. Building military alliances with Russia, China, and North Korea, 3 nuclear powers, building 3,000, that we know of, centrifuges to enrich uranium, and building alliances with Syria and Hezbollah in southern Lebanon to prepare for this annihilation.
I've only got a minute. We have so much to cover. Would you come on the radio show with me tomorrow and cover this in detail?
Sure.
Real quick, this guy is so dangerous, and these Twelvers are so dangerous that the Ayatollah Khomeini, back in 1979, banned them, tried to kill them all because they are just so volatile. But the 12th Imam does not come back to Iran. This is critical that you understand this because both Osama bin Laden say this is important and President Tom says this is important. Where does the 12th Imam return?
He goes to Iraq, to Karbala. He first comes to Mecca, then Medina, but he then goes to Iraq. And in the conditions of chaos and carnage, That's where he emerges to take over the world and create an Islamic caliphate, where, as one of his key advisors, the Ayatollah Amini, said, and I quote him in Epicenter, "The Mahdi will offer the religion of Islam to the Jews and Christians. If they accept, they'll be spared. Otherwise, they will be killed."
You don't have to believe that we're in the tribulation. We don't have to believe that the United States is the literal Antichrist, but he does, and that's important. We'll see you tomorrow on the radio program.